I think it's natural to feel overwhelmed if you're trying to juggle all of those things. You can have it all, but probably not all at the same time, unless you have a lot of help around that. So I think that also thinking about what bar are you really holding yourself to? If you have a young child and they're being fed, they have a clean diaper most of the time, they get hugged, etc., you're probably doing okay. Like, you don't need to be planning for college. I mean, you might be saving for college, but you don't need to be planning for college when they're, a year old. You don't have to be overthinking, do I put them in the right schools? Chill out. Most kids they're going to be fine. They will become who they are because you love and pay attention to them. You spend time, you read with them, you go to their activities, you support what you can. So I think give yourself grace because it is hard and it is a juggling act. And if you have access to support, don't be a martyr and not take it because you want to be the hero and prove that you can, because you will burn out and you will become that person you don't want to be.
Hey there, and welcome to another podcast episode of Mompreneurs Making Moves. I'm your host, Mariah Murdoch. And if you've ever been a busy solopreneur or you're an entrepreneur with a small team, but you don't have a dedicated right hand, then we need to chat because Infinite Exec can definitely support you. You don't have to do it alone. And in fact, if you're looking to grow and scale your business, you've got to have the right support behind you. So let's chat if you're interested in that. But if you've ever tried to answer emails with a toddler pulling at your sleeve, or you wondered how to grow your business while chasing your dreams and probably your kids, then you're in the right place, because every week we'll get real about wins, messes, and all the magical moments in between. So we're sharing practical tips, honest stories, and the laughs that keep you going. And we'll just go ahead and dive in. I have an amazing guest today, Melissa Carson. She is the Leaders Endurance Coach, partnering with high-performing leaders in organizations to help them build sustainable success in a world where leadership has no finish line. She has over 25 years of executive experience in HR and people strategy. Actually, when I read, and think about that experience, it's like, how is she not peopled out? I don't know. Because I'm just reading that thinking, oh, that has got to be exhausting. So it's probably actually one of the first questions I'm going to ask. But yes, experience in HR and people strategy at Accenture, EPAM, and beyond. Melissa brings deep operational insight and a uniquely human approach to leadership and team effectiveness. And she is the founder of Melissa Ryder Carson, recently rebranded from Canopy Strategies. And Melissa and I have worked together. And when I was first actually getting started in my business, actually, I think you were my very first client, believe it or not. You were my first client. So it really is an honor to have you here. And now we're doing this podcast. And this podcast, again, is for that mom who is trying to do it all, business and, just be a mom. And that might be you have kids that are grown. It might be your kids that are teens. It might be that you just had a baby like myself. And so we're just, reaching out to the best of the best to get advice on how do you navigate as a mom and a businesswoman. So how are you today, Melissa?
I am really good. I'm excited to be here. And I knew I was an early client, but I wasn't sure I was your first. So that's good, fun stuff.
Thank you for trusting me and taking the chance, because you gave me the hope that I needed to keep going. And it's, when I think about that, that's really invaluable. So, all right, first I want to ask you, how are you not all peopled out when you deal with people? Are you an introvert? Because I know I am. I'm speaking to all the introverts out there. Like, how do you get excited? You're actually excited about how to lead people.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. I am an introvert, but obviously in a job like mine, you have to have some extrovert moments for sure. So I need my quiet time outside of it. I think the thing about HR is that the context is the people stuff. Over the years, I had direct teams. Sometimes I didn't have direct teams and it was influence. So it wasn't always day-to-day management of all the crazy. As an HR person, you get to be able to look at a situation and say, okay, here's how to fix it. It may not be my problem to fix, I have to directly deal with, but I get to provide the context and help other people think about it. And so I think for me, that's why I'm not peopled out, because most of the time, though I have a fractional role right now where I do have a team, most of the time I don't have to do the day-to-day career management and conflict resolution and all of that makes leadership really challenging.
Yeah, yeah. And what is your suggestion for people who are in those roles and they're trying to learn how to lead, not manage, lead people, what would you say to that person as an encouragement in the day to
Yeah.
day?
I mean, I think first of it all starts with, do you have the right people in the right seats? If you have the right people, then it makes it a heck of a lot easier. And so that means that you need to, take your time hiring when you can to make sure it's a good fit. And I would all usually say the most important things in today's world is, do they have the right behaviors and attitudes? Are they a continuous learner? And do they have some of the basic skills? Because in today's world of AI, you can learn a lot, you can teach a lot, you can figure stuff out. So if you've got a learner who's got the right behavior and attitudes, good chance they're the right person. And so I think that's the key, is having the right people. So hire slower, fire fast when it's not the right fit and you know it's not, and save yourself some of those headaches. And then let people run. Give them the space to do what you hired them to do.
Yeah. What is one way that you would say we get in our own way as business owners in regards to our team and our people?
I mean, I think there's a couple things, and it depends on the personality that you have. So sometimes we are controlling. Like, maybe it's we don't trust the people,
No.
maybe we don't, maybe because there's a reason that we don't trust them, and maybe it's that we know how we like to do it and we don't really want to give up control. So I think that's one of the big ones. I think the other big one that I see a lot is incomplete expectation setting and follow up. So a lot of people will say, here's the task that I want you to do. And you expect somebody to do it. You're like, okay. You
Mhm.
expect somebody to ask the right questions. But if you haven't been really clear on, what's the real outcome that I want from this? What does good look like? Why am I doing this? What are the questions you have? And have that more of a dialogue. I always quote Brene Brown, who talks about painting done. So making sure that person that you're handing something off of or asking, that they have the whole picture and that they have the time to challenge and ask questions, make sure they know what you really want.
Yes, yes. That is so good. And that reminds me of Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. He talks about definition of done, which is what
Mm.
you're referring to. What does it look like when it's done? It feels, sounds like, looks like this, right? Would you say that it's damaging in a relationship between an employer and employee, or a boss and their, however you want to put that, leader and their follower, when the leader says, I need you to figure this out and just figure it out and get it done and don't come to me for anything? I just want it done. Is that damaging in the long run? What are the potential pros and
Mhm.
cons of that approach?
I mean, I think part of what you said, I think is good. Of like, hey, I want you to go figure it out. The part that's damaging is the, hey, don't come ask questions. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be paying for somebody to do something wrong. And if they really do need your insights on, hey, here's where I'm stuck, that you lost some trust, like that they actually don't care. Your boss doesn't really care about you and getting it done. And you're probably paying for potentially bad work. And so I think long run, it's not going to be a good relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on the name of the book. I just wrote a review for it, which is really scary, but it's like The Devil Calls at Midnight, I think. It's about bad bosses. And it's a lot of the scenarios of people who may not realize that they are an awful boss. But I think that's one of those stories of, hey, I'm not here to help you. You're on your own. And like, then you've made an investment in somebody and it's likely not going to turn out well. So you've wasted your time and money.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And what would you say? I deal with a lot of clients who are either worried that their team is not following up and following through on tasks, and that occupies their brain half the time. Like, did it drop the ball? Did it get done? I passed it off. Is it going to get done? Do I need to follow up? So that piece, or they have a team, let's say, and their work culture has always been, we got to put out the fires. We got to put out the fires. And because it's been that so long, now that they've learned their definition of done and they've explained it to their team is still in fire mode. Okay. So my question to you is, as a, team leader, business owner, who you created this work culture of, you only move with urgency when it's urgent, but now you're trying to become more of, no, we're proactive, not reactive, but your team is only used to reactive. And now that you're saying, hey, this is my definition of done, this is what this looks like, I need you to start thinking ahead, let's be proactive. You're trying to change the culture,
Mhm.
but your team is not responding to that because they're used to, and the work culture has been for years, it's been fire, 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 put it out, put it out, put it out of urgency. What would you say to that as a suggestion of shifting that culture?
I think it's a couple questions there. One is, do you have the right people? Because the people who truly are proactive, I think that's who they are. And have you clearly set expectations? Hey, we've leveled this out. Here's what I'm committed as a leader. I know we've been, chasing fires. We've put in some new systems. We've put in some new processes. Things should be calmer. Here's what your role is now. Here's what I want to see. Here's your remit. I now want you to be thinking about what's next. I want you to be thinking about what's not working because we now have a bit of space and time. Now, the trick though is, do they really have more space and time to think and to plan? Or have you just added 10 more things onto their plate? So realistically, they are still feeling in fire mode. So I think it's back to what are the expectations around proactivity? And then if you've set those and you're, asking people like, hey, here's what I need to see as far as back to your point of do I have to check up on them? Like, I trust that you've got this until it doesn't happen. Or "Yeah, I really need a weekly, monthly status report of here's the progress on these projects. So that you feel like, okay, once a week I'm going to get an update. And if it's not working, then I'll know. But I would also question if they can't be proactive, it's probably them.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long would you say you need to wait and monitor before you go ahead and do that fire?
I think it depends on what's your history with that person. If that person has been a good player on your team for the past couple years and solid player, I think you give them some time to figure out and you ask the question, hey, I've noticed,
Yeah.
I've really expected you to be a bit more proactive with this project,
Yeah.
but I'm not seeing it. Help me
Yeah.
understand what's going on. What am I not seeing? And I would give a bit more time, if they have a track record. If they are newer to your team and they're clearly not, you've given the expectations, then I'd probably say I'd do it sooner than later. I generally, unless there's something ridiculously bad, I generally give people like 30 days to fix it. Sometimes they need more, depending on what change you're expecting. But 30 days sort of gives you a rhythm to see, are they able to continue doing it?
Then what are two things that you would say need to be considered when you're onboarding a new hire?
And this I think actually starts even before you hire in the interview process, is being really clear on how are you going to measure success in the role. It's like, what are the top 2, 3 things that you'd say, these are gonna be how I know that they're successful. Now, sometimes if you have somebody who's in more of a sales-ish type role, you've got quotas and things to look at. But if somebody is, more of an operational behind the scenes person, thinking about how you're gonna know, it might be, their ability to get things done on time. It may be the quality of the work. It may be the creativity. But before you actually even hire somebody, know what those top 1 to 3 things are and make sure you're talking about it in the interview to say, hey, I'm going to measure your success based on the increase in email list that we create in the first 30 days based on you taking a new approach or whatever it is. What do you think about that? So that's in the interview, and then you bring it back up in the expectation setting in the onboarding.
How important is it in the hiring process to have them actually show proof of their competency, whether it's an assessment or actually doing a demonstration of a skill and a skills test? How
Yeah.
important is that in the hiring process?
I think if you can do it, if you can see something measured, I think that's good. In the world, depending what the job is, if you're looking for somebody to be a writer for you, you can ask them to give you a writing sample. Now, with the world of AI, you're like, okay, did they actually write it or not? And you want them to use AI to some extent. So it's also like thinking about how you're going to ask the question or how you're going to test. And it might be, hey, I encourage you to use AI. I want to know which tool you used. I want to know the prompt that you used so that I can quasi replicate it because it always looks different depending on who did it. But you can kind of see, did they actually do anything or did they just, put a prompt in there and say, here. Now, honestly, that could be good enough depending on what you're looking for. And maybe you want that creative. So I think seeing some work products, particularly if you're hiring somebody for creative work, you want to see their portfolio. Absolutely. You want to give them, here's a real problem that we've been facing. Walk me through your thoughts on how you would handle it. So put them in your world, something that you already solved or something you're in the middle of solving right now, and see how they think.
Yeah. No, that's great. What would you say when you hear a leader say they're not taking ownership? They should act like this is their own business, but they're not taking ownership. And if they would just take ownership, what would you say to that leader?
I mean, I think it's I probably said it to some extent, in my history of over some year, but I think it's a question of a they're not an owner, so they're really not going to be. But it's part of it's either that person that they don't generally take ownership of it. Two, you haven't set of expectations around what it is. Like, are you asking me to own it and then you micromanage me?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a micromanager, then I don't really own anything. Like, why should, or if I own it and then you question how I did everything, then I'm not really motivated to go own anything. So I think being really clear on, have you been clear? Are you being fair? If you are, then maybe it's not the right person if they're not going. But I think also, and particularly if this is a newer person in the workforce, you might have to be super clear on what does it mean to take ownership?
Yeah.
This means, for me, this means that you escalate when you don't know or that you're not going to hit a deadline. It means you go find the right people to ask questions. It means you don't and stare at a wall, unless that's your way of thinking, until the deadline hits.
Yes. That's very helpful. What would you say to the burnt out leader who is feeling like nothing is going right? Like they've done everything right, but nothing is going right. They've told their team their frustrations, their team continues the cycle. They've reached out to a mentor, their mentor challenges them, but they can't, wrap their head around whatever for whatever reason because it's not right and they're the only ones who are right. What would you say to that burnt out leader who's like, I'm doing everything right. I've checked all the boxes. I've followed all the pathways. I've taken all the courses. I've done all the leadership summits, and I still cannot get the right people or the right schedule, timeline, or whatever. Like, what would you say to that leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. I mean, I talk a lot about leadership endurance, which is obviously this is a real scenario there around sometimes if we are at that burned out, we can't see the path forward. We need the opportunity to sort of zoom out and look and say, okay, have we really done these things? Do I really have the right people? What am I doing? Because usually we are part of the problem. Because if we are so burned out, our stress behaviors are showing up. We're more impatient. We're not willing to coach and train. We may not be really giving the clarity that our teams need. So I think it starts with, how do you get back feeling somewhat balanced? Now, and I know that sounds like nice when your world is, crazy and, business is, sales are in the tank or you're missing deadlines, your customers aren't happy, like to taking time off. But I mean, it is about, how do you step back? How do you make sure that you are good? Like, how are you putting your own oxygen mask on so that you can lead through it and can actually see, okay, where is the root cause here? What is really going on? And do I have 10 root causes? Well, okay, well then we got to tackle one at a time. And so I think, getting an outside perspective, whether it's from a mentor, a coach, a buddy, or somebody else who can look at it with a different set of eyes. And I think if you don't have any of that, then what I would suggest is try and step back and pretend this is not your company. This is not your team. This is not your business. And you are giving advice to your best friend based on what you see. Sometimes we are more open and being able to see it if we're saying, well, of course it's this. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody just asks you that question, like, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
what if this weren't your business? What would you be telling me to do?
Yeah, no, that is helpful. And so I want to talk about your rebrand. But before we get into that, I want to first unpack very briefly, just explain how you help leaders and who are you looking to work with and partner with today?
Yeah. So I think, thank you for that opportunity. I work with high achieving leaders who are either like nonprofit executive directors, running small businesses, leading teams, leading organizations, that profile of person. In a lot of cases, they're moms. But I think there's usually at some sort of inflection point. My passion is really around, how do I help leaders get unstuck from a perspective in, I have a team problem. I have a I can't get out of my own way problem type thing. But also then, how do I help them navigate making their organization? How can their organization have endurance? Let's make sure we have the right teams. Let's make sure we have the right structures. Let's make sure you have the right leaders leading your teams. So I work in, short term, hey, let's do a quick fix, to, hey, let me come alongside you. One of my clients has described me like their caddy. Somebody else, as I was describing what I do, they said, oh, you're their second brain. I'm like that. So, I try, because I'm all about how do we go the distance when there's no finish line? Because there's so many competing pressures. There's a lot of complexity. There is a lot of chaos right now, a lot of uncertainty. And particularly as women, we often don't think the right thing is to ask for help, though we would generally hire a personal trainer and we
Mm,
should probably hire a golf coach. But sometimes when we think in business, that we shouldn't ask for support. But I tell you, the big CEOs, the big leaders out there, they have somebody that they're partnering with.
yeah. It's almost like behind every successful man is a woman or, something like that.
Well, and that nobody succeeds by themselves. The honesty is we're trying many times to do it on our own because we see, oh, it looks like she's doing it or it looks like he's doing it. I should be able to do this on my own. The reality is you don't have to. Like, they're not probably because they're willing to get support from a partner or a friend or coach or whatever it is to make them successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about your rebrand. So you went from Canopy Strategies to Melissa Ryder Carson. What first does that mean? What does that rebrand mean for you? And then two, why did you do it?
Yeah, and I'll actually step back because this is the third title of my business, which is really funny for a 6-year business. I became Canopy Strategies about 2023, I think. And at
Yeah.
the time, I was just looking to become, for my content or my website, to feel like I was a grown up in business. And at that time, the woman I was working with said, hey, as I think about this, you know, I think you're really talking about, helping people zoom out. Let's talk about the canopy. And I still believe that. I'm still all about zooming out to focus in. But fast forward to this fall, I was working with somebody else and they're like, I think there's something on your website. It's not feeling like you. And so we started working on just the design to rebrand, to fix Canopy Strategies. And at the time, and it's somebody I knew from decades ago that I'd worked with but didn't really know, that we've gotten to know each other recently. And as we were finishing, like, she's done all the work, we've done all the messaging. She's like, I just have to ask you this. She's like, you're selling your, individual leadership yourself. You're not trying to be a big business. Why are you not branded under your own name? And I didn't have a good answer. And I was like, okay, you know
Mhm.
what? Let's go. And now this was mid-September. My
Mhm.
anniversary for the business is October 1st officially that I call. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm going to announce it
Mhm.
on October 1st and
Mhm.
that I did this. And so what it means, like, I still do the same work, but I think that I'm trying to stop being something else. Like, this
Yeah,
is not a business about something else. It's
yeah,
about how do I help and support the leaders that are out there that are ready to continue to make the impact that they're meant to make. How do I help them? And just owning that that's what this business is going to be all about.
yeah. I know. I love that. And honestly, the brands that people think of the most, unless you're Nike,
Yeah.
they really it's themselves. And so it's the most powerful brand you have. And you want in a different podcast, I talked about this with with a marketing director, but she said you want what people are going to resonate with. Like, do they think of this? Do you have to spend so much time building a name of a brand that people do not know or readily understand, or just your name, yourself, like and she had a business called Process Makes Perfect, and it was into operations and marketing and stuff. And I love that. I love that idea. But people weren't resonating with that brand, that name at this time. They may in the future. You never know. But right now, so she pivoted and she went with her name, such and such consulting. And that is what she does for that reason, that what is it that people are looking to and will easily identify and resonate with, being willing to pivot in business and personal branding and branding in general. It is some of the most powerful branding you can do. So, yeah, excited for you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about being a mom
Mhm.
and being a businesswoman. Obviously, it's not for the faint of heart.
Mm-mm.
And do you ever deal with mom guilt because your kids are grown? They've gone to college, they're like living life, and you're in a different stage than most of the women I've interviewed so far. Do you ever feel like you're not showing up as the best mom that you can be, and you feel guilty about that with your kids now, even though they're older and they're in a different phase? And, it's not like they went away though, right? You're still supporting in certain ways. You're
Yeah.
still connecting. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I'm like, I think there's definitely less mom guilt. Like, there's the look back of like, oh, I wish I had done that. I think that it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day about somebody was talking about being generous and how you use your time or your gifts or things, and I'm like, you know, I'm not the mom who sends care packages to my kids. And I'm like, "Ooh, maybe that's not a good thing." Like, maybe I should be sending care packages. Now, they
Right?
often get free groceries and other things that, show up, and I'm like, I'm probably not that person. I'm like, "Ooh." So there's a little bit of like, am I doing enough? But I
Mm.
think what helps me realize that I'm doing okay is that they still want to come to the house. They still want to see us. And granted, we are buying them food and feeding them and those types of things, but they're willing to hang out with us. And their turn. So I have my daughter just turned 20. She's a junior in college, and my son is 21. And yeah, we just had the fun of he was buying a different car today, and the person didn't want a cashier's check. So it was like we had to do a bit of Venmo, a bit of Zelle, and then another Venmo from his account, like because the
Right.
guy didn't want a cashier's check. I mean, but it's like the challenges are just very different. But the fact that they want to spend time with us and they want to interact makes the guilt a little bit less. But I mean, having been working full time when my kids were little, I mean, that was a lot. And I traveled and felt like, am I doing enough? But at the end of the day, they know I mean, if you're there for the really important things and they know you care,
Yeah.
they might not like you all the time. They probably if they like you all the time, you're probably not
Mhm.
doing it right because
Mhm.
you're probably not putting some guardrails out. But, I'm proud when I look at my kids and they talk about, people they live with or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, no, they don't clean up, they don't do this." I'm like, "At least we taught you right. You know that your dishes go in the dishwasher or they get washed. You know the trash goes out. You know those things." So, I feel like we did a couple things right.
Is is it okay to feel overwhelmed as a mom and a businesswoman, especially when you're talking about training your kids in the right way and trying to give them a good quality of life, but also just the energy it takes to be like, this is how a good human gives back to society. This is how you can be a critical thinker. Like all of that in and of itself seems a little overwhelming to me, at least. And thankfully he's only 7 months right now. So I have to kind of think about that. But I mean, for moms who are there and it's like, wow, I'm raising a human while trying to, I'm birthing a business. Like I just gave birth. That's a lot.
It
Is it okay
is.
to feel overwhelmed? And then what do you have to say as a piece of advice to that mom?
Well, I think it's natural to feel overwhelmed if you're trying to juggle all of those things. And so I think that I do like the piece of like, you can have it all, but probably not all at the same time, unless you have a lot of help around that. So I think that also thinking about what bar are you really holding yourself to? If you have a young child and they're being fed, they have a clean diaper most of the time, they get hugged, etc., you're probably doing okay. Yeah, like, you don't need to be planning for college. I mean, you might be saving for college, but you don't need to be planning for college when they're a year old. Like, you don't have to be overthinking, do I put them in the right schools? Like, chill out. Most kids are they're going to be fine. They will become who they are mostly because you love and pay attention to them. That you spend time, you read with them, you go to their activities, you support what you can. So I think give yourself grace because it is hard and it is a juggling act. And if you don't have, I mean, two things. If you have access to support, don't be a martyr and not take it because you want to be the hero and prove that you can because you will burn out. And you will become that person you don't want to be. If you don't have easy access, like figure out, in your neighborhood, who can support you? Where can you? And be okay saying no, which is really, really hard. I wasn't good at it. I mean, I have my own lessons learned. Yeah.
No, that is so, so helpful. And really, just thank you for sharing with us on this quick episode. I obviously could talk with you for a long time. So I'm trying to be respectful and just cap it right there. That was great. But no, we really do appreciate that. And I know a lot of mompreneurs will be able to gather so much value from our very short but power packed episode. So thank you for your time today. And, for those of you who are listening, if you want to connect, I highly, highly recommend you connect, follow all of the things. I'll have Melissa's information linked below. And thanks so much for hanging out with us at Mompreneurs Making Moves. And if you found a little encouragement, fresh idea, or just felt seen, definitely subscribe and reach out to Melissa, connect with us. We're here for each other. That's what we talk about on this podcast. And remember that every small step you take in your business and in your life matters. And you are absolutely not alone on this journey. So keep making moves, keep showing up, and don't forget to take care of yourself too. And follow us if you're not already at Mompreneurs Making Moves on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can watch the full interview on our YouTube channel at Mompreneurs Making Moves Official. Melissa, thank you again so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great discussion.